Hello. Today, let us have an overview of Jacques Lacan's influential paper, The Agency of the Letter in the Unconscious, or Reason since Freud. This paper is highly significant because it is in this paper that Lacan has formulated his theories of the unconscious and language. Psychoanalysis after Freud moved in two directions. One is object relations theory and the other is Neo-Freudianism. Lacan belongs to the second movement. What he did was that he reformulated Freudian theories on the basis of Saussurean linguistics. The central argument of his paper is that the unconscious is structured like language. This paper is divided into three parts. The first one is the meaning of the letter. The second part is the letter in the unconscious. And the third is the letter being and the other. Now, let us discuss the first part, the meaning of the letter. In this part, Lacan argues that psychoanalysis discovers in the unconscious the whole structure of language. Here, we must be aware of the difference between Freud's and Lacan's concept of the unconscious. According to Freud, the unconscious mind is a product of repression. Repression is a psychological censorship imposed on those desires of the individual which are unacceptable to the society. Such a censorship is essential for social life. Thus, to Freud, the unconscious is part of the human psyche. He has compared the human psyche to an iceberg. Only its tip is visible above the surface and the density and weight lies beneath. This is how Freud deconstructed the notion of a unified human subject. Lacan, on the other hand, rejected this view of the unconscious as the locus of desire and instinct. He says that the unconscious is structured like language and can be located outside the individual, that is, in intersubject relations. We shall soon see how this is possible. The title of the first part is The Meaning of the Letter. So what is meant by this title? Here, Lacan says that we have to take the letter in the literal sense. Here, letter is the material support that concrete discourses borrow from language. Before language acquisition, the child develops concepts, that is, signifiers, to use the terminology of Saussure. This is evident from the behavior of the child. For example, the child knows its mother because it has an idea or concept about its mother. These concepts are later expressed through signifiers after language acquisition. The signifiers are constituted by letter. This is why he says that the letter is the material support to discourses. The point is that the child expresses his ideas and desires through language. This language is something that pre-exists him. Thus, the child learns to use the language invented by somebody else. This language imposes its own structures on the child's psyche, and thus a subject is made. This is why Lacan says that it is not we who master the language, but it is the language that masters us. If we were born in any other linguistic community, our thoughts would have been different. It is language that gives the subject thoughts. Since the subject is made by language which pre-exists him or her, the subject becomes the slave of language. Now, let us see how Lacan offers a different view on Saussure's concept of the sign. In Saussurean linguistics, the sign is constituted by the signifier and the signified. Here, Saussure rejected the conventional idea of word as a combination of a name and an object or event. The Saussurean algorithm is that the sign is equal to signifier by signified. To him, the signifier is a psychological image which can be phonic or graphic, and the signified is the concept and not the object. It is the concept. In the Saussurean algorithm, Lacan is concerned with the bar or line that separates the signifier from the signified. To him, this line is an extra-linguistic barrier that resists signification. To make it clear, an object, for example, is with multiple features, properties, or dimensions. But when we name it, we take into consideration only that which matters to us. All other properties or features are suppressed under an extra-linguistic barrier that resists signification. The real object is now reduced to a signifier. This is why Lacan has said that the very process of naming an object is equal to killing it. In the Saussurean algorithm, both the signifier and the signified are of equal importance. Theirs is a relationship of parallelism. But Lacan places the signifier over the signified. He illustrates this with the example of two identical toilet doors with the signboards attached to them, ladies and gentlemen. So these are the two signboards, ladies and gentlemen. A train arrives at a railway station. A little brother and sister are sitting face to face at the window side. From the window by which the boy is sitting, he can read the signboard, ladies. And from her window, the girl can see the other signboard, gentlemen. The boy then says that they have arrived at ladies, but the girl disagrees. In this example, the place they have arrived at is signified, and the little children try to attach different signifiers to it. In this analogy, according to Lacan, the rail plays the role of the bar that separates the signifier from the signified in the Saussurean algorithm. Moreover, from another point of view, the signboards are attached to two identical dots. It is the signifiers attached to them that invest them with meaning. Hence, the signifier is more important than the signified. Here the signifier enters the signified. It alters or creates the meaning or concept. In the example of the toilet doors, the signified is the same country traversed from different points of view. Another point is that, according to Lacan, each signifier is not attached to a signified, but other signifiers. In the example of the toilet doors, to explain the meaning of the signifiers, ladies and gentlemen, we need the help of a series of signifiers like privacy, sanitary segregation, and the like, which are essential for modern life. So one signifier is attached to another, and this is a never-ending chain. It is in this chain that meaning insists, but none of them consists of meaning. There is an incessant sliding of the signified under the signifier. We can never reach the realm of the signified. The realm of the signifier is more extensive, structuring, and controlling than the realm of the signified. Now, let us know more about signifiers. The signifiers are subjected to a double conditioning. They are reducible to ultimate differential elements in a synchronic system, like phonemes. The differential connection of phonemes present the letter. Secondly, they can be combined according to the rules of a closed order, which reflects the topological substratum of the signifying chain. This is how Saussure presents the paradigmatic and syntagmatic axis of language. Paradigmatic axis is the vertical axis of selection, and the syntagmatic axis is the horizontal axis of combination in Saussurean linguistics. Lacan now acknowledges his debt to Roman Jakobson's twin concepts of metaphor and metonymy in the process of signification. In the figure of speech metaphor, a name is transferred to an object or an action different from, but analogous to, that which it is literally applicable. All the world is a stage is an example. Metonymy is another figure of speech that works on association between elements. For example, in the sentence, he ascended the throne means he became king, because throne is associated with kingship. Lacan sees the same logic in the heart of signification. The incessant sliding of the signified under the signifier can be considered as the logic of metaphor. In the case of metaphor, one signifier is used in the place of another. Here, the displaced signifier, or what Lacan has called the occulted signifier, maintains a metonymic association with the rest of the chain. In the case of the unconscious mind, social censure can be avoided by such metonymic association. The first part of the paper thus prepares the ground for his thesis that the unconscious is structured like language. The second part of the paper is the letter in the unconscious. Here, Lacan points out Freud's increasing attention to language in his analysis of the unconscious. In his famous dream analysis, Freud had introduced two processes that are involved in the making of a dream: condensation and displacement. The latent content of a dream, that is, the actual experiences that cause the dream, may cover several days or months of experiences. Condensation is the process of compressing such unconscious data into densely concentrated packs of images. Here, a single image may stand for a cluster of ideas. Displacement is an effective condensation whereby one psychic figure is relocated in another manifestation or image. Lacan sees the two processes of condensation and displacement as analogous to metaphor and metonymy. Condensation corresponds to metaphor because Lacan had defined metaphor as the substitution of one signifier for another, with the displaced one remaining in the metonymic form. The second strategy, that of displacement, Lacan sees as corresponding to metonymy, a slipping away on the part of the signifying process, so as to foil the censoring ego. Thus, it is a matter of combination of signifiers. Now, to put it in another way, there is a parallelism among Saussure's vertical paradigmatic axis, or the axis of selection in language, Jakobson's metaphoric pole of language, and Freud's concept of condensation. On another side, the same parallelism can be seen in Saussure's horizontal syntagmatic axis, or the axis of combination in language, Jakobson's metonymic pole of language, and Freud's concept of displacement. Both parallelisms follow the same logic. In short, Lacan sees the mechanisms that are fundamental to the signifying process in language, metaphor and metonymy, as equally fundamental to the dream also. The dream is a form of writing, and the dream work follows the laws of the signifier according to Lacan. Lacan now turns to the function of the subject in the signifying process. The concepts of subject and subjectivity can be traced back to René Descartes in modern philosophy. Descartes' famous dictum, cogito ergo sum, means I think, therefore I am. Or in other words, I am my thoughts. I am constituted by my thoughts. The subject is made by his thoughts. Lacan rejected this Cartesian view of the subject. He proposes another version of Descartes' formula, cogito ergo sum ubi cogito ibi sum, which means I think, therefore I am. Where I think, there I am. I shall make it clear soon. Lacan then turns to the Copernican revolution made by Freud with regard to a unified human subject introduced by Descartes. Just like Copernicus rejected the Ptolemaic system of the earth as the center of the universe, Freud replaced the notion of a unified subject with the idea that the self bears an otherness within itself, that is the unconscious. According to Lacan, the place that I occupy as a signifier will be a place in language. Here, I as the personal pronoun. So, the place that I occupy as a signifier will be a place in language. It is a grammatical function. The place that I occupy as a signified will be a concept that is also situated within the networks of language. My thoughts are not mine. They are given to me by language. It is the language that teaches us to think. We can think in terms of language which is not our invention. Then how can we say that the subject is constituted by his thoughts? Hence, my thoughts, far from being under my control or identifiable as the basis of my identity, is actually part of a vaster signifying process in which I find myself and which largely controls me. So this is how Lacan questions Descartes' idea of cogito ergo sum. The subject is on an endless quest for unity, a quest that must take place metonymically among a chain of signifiers, one being displaced for another. The subject is on an endless quest for unity, a quest that must take place metonymically among a chain of signifiers, one being displaced for another. The third part of the paper is the letter, being, and the other. In this section, Lacan discusses how Freud has compromised his ideas of the unconscious with psychoanalysis. The notion of the unconscious, as we have already seen, indicates that the self bears an otherness within itself. And this otherness is external to itself. But Freud developed psychoanalysis as a form of therapy to cure mental illness by investigating the interaction between the conscious and the unconscious minds. This means that the psychoanalytic institution has compromised Freud's own notion of the unconscious with the humanist idea of a unified personality, which has been prevalent for long in Western philosophy, something that had been derived from Descartes' dictum cogito ergo sum. Thus, psychoanalysis treats the unconscious as an aberration that must be reintegrated into the ego so that the patient can be considered as normal according to bourgeois standards. The underlying idea being that neurosis can be cured once placed in the totalizing narrative of the coherent conscious life of the patient. The patient's symptom is a metaphor, and the man's desire must be considered as metonymy. Now, Lacan suggests that the unconscious is the discourse of the other, that is, other with big O. Lacan has introduced two others in his paper on the mirror stage, one with small o and the other with capital O. The other with small o in simple terms is what the self is not. The big other, or the other with the capital O, suggests the whole overarching symbolic agency that structures the minds of individuals in the society. It pre-exists the subject. It determines the role to be played by the subject in the world. It can be language, it can be culture. The unconscious is formed by the interaction between the subject and this big other. The subject's thoughts and desires are controlled and structured by this other with capital O. Thus, Lacan says that the unconscious is not so much within us, but that the unconscious is radically exterior to the conscious mind. It is engaged in a dialectically uneven series of connections with the conscious mind, whereby it structures the conscious mind somewhat, and the conscious mind, thus structured in turn, exerts its influence on the unconscious. This is the dialectical relationship between the conscious and the unconscious mind. Lacan exposes the notion that the unconscious is not something to be hidden and protected from the social structures which govern the world, but the unconscious is part of that world. It is constituted by language. It is the discourse of the other. It is without a sender, without a psychological substratum. It is nothing more than a series of positions it occupies in language. In this way, Lacan, through insisting on the agency of letter in the unconscious, brings out the truly radical and subversive nature of the unconscious discovered by Freud. Thank you.